The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast. Hello there, and welcome to The Force of Others. I'm Zachary Owen Turner.
I'm Matt Beutner, and today on The Force of Others, we're going to talk about Ashley Eckstein chiming in on Ahsoka Tano's connection to Mortis. Daisy Ridley says the new Jedi Order movie is prioritizing quality over quickness, and we're going to debate AI fan films and whether or not they're even real, on top of diving into your questions in the mailbag. But Zach, let the people know, how was your week, and how was your Star Wars week?
Yeah, my week was busy. So busy. I booked a gig doing some voiceover on a video game, which I can't talk too much about, but is very
But you can say
exciting.
that much now.
I can
That's
say
cool.
that much.
Nice.
It was really fun. Got to do 10 different characters and 2 hours in the studio, just like coming up with different characters and leaning into some archetypes and all that. But I was real excited. I took a little bit of Lando Han for one of the characters, so little something like that. That's all I can say about that. But as far as my
Nice.
Star Wars week goes, I actually was listening to Fat Man Beyond, which Matt and I bonded over in college. That used to be one of the podcasts that we would listen to every week. That's Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin. And this week they had a very interesting discussion. JC, who's their resident Star Wars guy, was talking about how he doesn't feel the need to be a completionist Star Wars fan anymore, or a Marvel completionist. And I, it got me thinking about the state of Star Wars and Marvel, and I guess the fatigue I think that a lot of fans feel with Marvel and Star Wars. And so, Matt, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and thought we could talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's we've talked about it a little on the show before, just in terms of sometimes quantity over quality. While that feels so terrible to say, sometimes just the simple fact of there being more is how you grease the wheels of the franchise machine.
Yeah.
You think about Star Trek in the 90s and in the 80s, really, that pretty much every other Star Trek movie, not always that awesome. Like Star Trek 1, not a good movie. Terrible. So bad. Star Trek the Motion Picture, Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, pretty much regarded as the best Star Trek movie. Search for Spock, it's okay. The Voyage Home, one of the best Star Trek movies. Just, you never know when the next one is going to be your favorite, right? And so just to weather the storm through the things that maybe you don't like as much, but just because there's more happening, at least the common thought for a long time was that's how you grow the franchise. What I do think is worth bringing up is 6 years ago, Endgame comes out. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has changed Hollywood forever.
Yeah.
Period. In the same way that Star Wars did. Proved you can do comic book mega events and build to a genre film for 10 years with different franchises and bridge them all together. Everybody tried to copy it before they even got to Endgame, and everybody's failed, right? There hasn't been a successful shared cinematic universe outside of that. But that changed everything, and since then, it has definitely been quantity over quality everywhere. Yeah. And now, you got Deadpool admitting in a Marvel movie, well, Wolverine, you're joining at a bit of a low point. And now that there is at least one Star Wars TV show every year, think back to when we were just dreaming of Star Wars being on television, right? Now that there is so much, not everybody is going to be able to do the buffet that you and I will, where we just have a little more time. We don't have kids, right? And so we'll watch whatever, whenever. Just more, please, thank you. Most people are now going to have to pick and choose, right? So I will always feel like I need to be a completionist to some degree, just because that's the joy that I get out of this franchise. Yeah. And it started with Clone Wars. When I first saw trailers for the Clone Wars movie, I was in the bag for Star Wars already. It was probably my favorite thing. But in 2008, when I would watch trailers for this kiddie cartoon, I was like, I'm happy that's out there, but like, again, nobody liked the prequels at that time. So I was like, more prequel stuff, and it's animated now, and it's like, kiddie? I'm good. No, thank you. Didn't even see the movie in the theater. It wasn't until the summer before season 4 of the Clone Wars that I was like, I'm going to give this a go.
Yeah.
Was all of it great? No. Is it my favorite show now? Favorite Star Wars show? Probably.
Yeah.
You know? So what I'm not saying is lower your standards, but I think what I might be saying is if you engage with what it is, while it might not be what you expected, you'll find new things. Mm-hmm. This is very rambly, and I have no point, so I hope this is entertaining, listeners. But I think that, because there's also the thing of, like, you can't please everybody, and some people are always going to look for things to be upset about. Yeah. More Star Wars? Now I don't have to wait 3 years. I don't like this. And that, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, if you told 10-year-old me that there was going to be, well, at 10-year-old me, the prequels were coming out. So if you told 10-year-old me that one day Star Wars 7, 8, and 9 were going to come out, they were in some way, each of them, going to have Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher in them. And in the meantime, there was a the second Star Wars animated show, Star Wars Rebels, I mean, not counting droids and Ewoks, was coming out and was crushing it.
Yeah.
And we were going to get a live-action show featuring a Mandalorian, a Baby Yoda, and eventually Luke Skywalker. And that was all happening in the same time period, I would have lost my mind. Mm-hmm. My brain would have melted and dribbled out of my face. So, while there is so much of it, I get people, you're going to create less of a demand when there's more, as opposed to waiting 3 years in between movies. You just are. But I don't necessarily think that that is a bad thing. So there's my long, not planned out answer. Where are you at with this?
Yeah, I mean, like, I definitely feel it on the Marvel side. There's a couple of shows and now movies that I just haven't wanted to. I'm excited for Daredevil, but like, cool. You know, like, I don't think there's a couple. I'm still trying to finish Agatha, and I really like that show. It's just like, I'm just busy. Life just life gets in there, and you're like, oh, I don't got the time to watch all these things. So, but on Star Wars, you know, like, it matters to me, so I kind of prioritize it, you know. And I think my thing to say to people would just be like, hey, give everything 2 episodes. You know, give it 2-3 episodes. Because that's what we used to have to do with TV. You know, like, hey, watch Skeleton Crew 2 episodes. And if you don't like it, don't watch it. But if you do, you're going to love it. Because that show's great. Andor, watch 2 episodes. You're going to know exactly, even Andor Season 1, you know exactly what that show is going to be in 2 episodes. You know? But, yeah, just give everything 2 episodes. Give it a chance. And then if you don't like it, don't watch it, you know? But,
well, but you also hear, like,
just choose the ones that you'd like, and then if you're like, oh, I don't know about this guy, then you can honestly go on Wikipedia, look it up, and you don't have to watch a whole season, or you could just, you know, ask us right into the show, and we'll tell you about it.
There it is. Well, yeah, and I mean, it just, I honestly think it's so funny that people are mad that there's more. You know what I mean? And I don't want to sound like a greedy kid, but let's face it, guys. Until the age of 10, Star Wars was 3 movies.
Yeah.
Period. For me, right? And before 1999, it was 3 movies. And yes, there were all the... well, that's the thing. You never saw anybody complaining about books and comics, making them not want to be completionists. Yeah. And we have never not had that since 1977.
I still can't be a completionist that way.
Oh, I can't either. I'll read the big ones. I'm going to be a Legacy of Vader month in, month out for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, you know, and it's a wider conversation about how the franchise bubble has popped a little bit. Mm-hmm. That then, you know, apparently reviews are mixed on Captain America: Brave New World, but at the same time, everybody that I personally know that has seen it has gone, that's a good, fun movie.
Yeah.
There's nothing really wrong with it. It's not amazing, but it's not the dumpster fire people are saying it is. Because there is so much, it is popular right now to hate on franchise movies.
Yeah.
And franchise entertainment. But did you have anything else in your Star Wars week, or what were you about to say?
No, I was like, speaking of franchise entertainment, how did Star Wars find you?
So I had a good week. Valentine's Day was not me swarmed by 300 people at a bar like it was for Zach, I'm sure. Was it about 300 people
We did
after all?
240 people at the restaurant.
That's preposterous.
Yeah.
All
of those were 2 tables of 2. So
jeez.
Yeah.
We Jenny and I did not go out on Valentine's Day proper. We went out the next day.
Nice.
We went out on the Saturday, and I got props from like the head waiter at the restaurant that we went to, because we went out for lunch on Saturday the 15th, and he looked at me and nodded. He was like, "Was this your Valentine's Day date?" I was like, "Hey," he goes, "You're smart. Never go out on actual Valentine's Day. You won't get good service."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "I'm gonna give you all of my attention." And I was like, "Creepy. That's a weird thing to say, but thank you for, I guess, giving me props on my strategy." But as for how Star Wars found me this week, while I was busy, I had easily the most time in my week out of the last 3 months.
Oh, wow.
My big work season has, Junior Theater Festival has come and gone, and while my semester for my academy has begun in full swing, I had free time for the first time in so long. And one of the many things that I did that I talked about last week was I commissioned some custom miniatures for my role-playing games. And now I'm going to show them off to the camera, and if you can't see them, look us up on YouTube. But Lycan Miniatures 3D on Etsy and Instagram.
Instagram.
I will. But I'm going to do a little parade here. Here's the SM33, custom made. He's got the peg leg. He's got the eyeballs all messed up and everything.
Does it
but
have
I got
the little,
me one of those.
The little mouse coming out of the eye?
It does not have the mouse coming out of the eye. Let me get him real close to the camera. But he does have a lit up eye and then just a blank eye. I also got me a Brutus. Again,
cool.
Custom minifigures at the right scale and all. And he looks fantastic. I can't wait to have him live longer in my RPG campaign than he did on Skeleton Crew. What were you about to say?
No, I was just saying it's cool looking. That's.
Oh, yeah. And then also, probably my favorite of the ones that I got this week, and then I'm going to show off another one that I've gotten from this guy, The Stranger. Absolutely such a cool custom mini. He's got the Cortosis helmet, the Cortosis bracer and everything, and there's even some Manny Jacinto muscles. What else could you want? Last but not least, and this is custom one of a kind. Or I don't know, he probably posted it a couple times for other people. But so in the Star Wars campaign that I run, like my home game, right? My favorite thing to do is to put the players in situations that they know from Star Wars canon and give them the opportunity to interact with it freely. So they can make changes to the story. Not changes that I do off screen and I'm like, aha, Darth Vader's not around anymore. It's just Starkiller. What are you going to do? It's different. They change things. They'll make deals with characters they don't know are working with the Sith or whatever, blah, 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 and things will get vastly different because of their actions. One of the things that happened, Darth Maul did not get cut in half. He got stabbed through the chest in Star Wars Episode 1. And so I came up with like, okay, he's going to come back. I need someone to make me a miniature of Darth Maul with Darth Vader's chest plate, because that would be really fun. Who can I find that could do this? And that was actually the first mini I got from Lycan Miniatures 3D. So I have a custom Darth Maul with Darth Vader's chest piece.
Cool.
It is so fun. And basically what he did was he put Maul's head on the top of a Vader, because that's Vader's, Vader's whole getup minus his head. But it's pretty dope. And anything you can do for your home games when you put like a mini out on the table and they're all like, ah! So if you want to get something cool in that vein, in the miniature vein for role-playing games or what have you, look up Lycan Miniatures 3D on Etsy and Instagram. Not a sponsor, but a friend. Mm-hmm. Speaking of friends, Star Wars found me in one other cool way, one other cool fan creation way. And speaking of the podcast, the first interview we ever had way back in, I think, that's not true, the second interview we ever had, because the first one was Kai.
Yeah.
The second interview we ever had was with Nate Barber of Tabletop Empire, that YouTube channel, and he talked about his upcoming role-playing game stream, which is Dark Underworld. 4 episodes are out now, and I actually highly recommend checking it out.
Oh, nice.
The episodes are about 2 hours apiece, but it is very underworld Coruscant. It's very crime and everything else. It's the closest that we've gotten, in my opinion, to like the George Lucas Underworld show.
Cool.
Star Wars Underworld, right? It's very, very fun. There's the one character that is full-on comic relief. There's the character that is like kind of the tanky, well-meaning dumb guy. I'm insulting these people, but they're all funny. It's a funny show. There's a cool mystery involving the Night Sisters.
Cool.
And it's a very classic role-playing game thing where these people are so street level, you can tell they are in no way prepared for what they're getting into, and that's what makes it fun. I highly recommend checking it out. They use the Fantasy Flight game system, which is my preferred Star Wars-y system. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it, but look it up because it's cool. So that's how Star Wars found me and how I found it, rather, this week. But to dive into the actual episode,
Yeah.
I thought this was really cool. For our headliner for the week, Ashley Eckstein was quoted on Ahsoka Tano's connection to Mortis, and specifically her connection to the light side of the Force. This was at MegaCon 2025. I found this quote on dorksideoftheforce.com, where they just kind of covered that panel. And this is the exact quote from Miss Eckstein, who, if you don't know, the original voice actor for Ahsoka Tano, has played the role longer than anybody else, at least to this point. She says, "This is just my personal opinion, so don't get me in trouble with Dave Filoni." Thought that was funny. But I think Ahsoka, in many ways, represents the light side of the Force as well. She was talking about her connection to Mortis, and how, in her mind, Ahsoka literally is the light side of the Force.
Yeah.
So, Zach, I mean, I have lots of thoughts, you can imagine, but what is your first blush reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who don't know what Mortis is, it was this dream state slash thing that actually happened where they went into another world, and there's the father, the daughter, and the son, and they all represent different parts of the Force. The daughter's the light side, the father is, the son is the dark side, and they're trying to keep everybody in balance. And Ahsoka actually dies, and the daughter gives up her life to bring Ahsoka back to life. And then they all wake up on the ship that they were on, and they're like, wait, did that all happen? So it's all very, mystical and all that. But it's good to know, because Ahsoka Season 2 will most likely cover a lot of that, as we saw the father pointing at the end of that, with the son by his side and the daughter without a head because she's dead. That being said, I would agree. I think Ahsoka definitely represents a lot of the light side of the Force. I don't think she is the daughter now. I don't think that makes sense, because she still has struggles. Going into Rebels and then the Ahsoka series, like, she's not 100% pure, 100% right, 100%, like, she still is a person with feelings and with failings. That being said, I do think she is, attuned to that side. We see the daughter's owl all the time when you see Ahsoka, which is called Morai. Yeah. I was gonna say Maori, but that would be a different kind.
Different thing.
Just a guy doing the haka behind every time we see Ahsoka.
Trying to imagine. Look at that mean mini Morai just tickety tapping. Okay.
Yeah. Right. But I think she definitely has something to do with it, because we do see Morai all the time. When the World Between Worlds, even in the Ahsoka show, we see that owl. So there's something going on. I think we will get the answer next season of Ahsoka, if not the movie after that.
Could be.
Yeah. I definitely think she has deep, deep ties, because the daughter gave her life for Ahsoka. And I think it's Gandalf. It's Gandalf. You know, and Dave Filoni has
Yeah.
kind of said it's Gandalf. She's now Gandalf
Yeah.
the White. She
Yeah.
is an Ishtar, to go into Lord of the Rings lore. She is an angel sent by the gods to help these people.
Okay. I was about to ask what that meant.
And Ishtar, Lord of the Rings rant. Gandalf, Saruman, all of the wizards are Ishtar. They're sent by the god. They're basically angels with magic sent to like help the realms of Middle Earth, and some of them get corrupted and become, Saruman, and some of them are good. But yeah, so she's ordained by the Force gods to come and help us mere mortals, and that's why she can't die.
Well, right on. So, well, yeah, I mean, I feel kind of the same. And again, what she was saying here is that she thinks Ahsoka in many ways represents the light side of the Force.
Yeah.
Now obviously, we can go back and forth. What's fun about the Mortis arc on Clone Wars is, like you said, we don't know if it actually happened or if it was all kind of a shared Force vision. We don't know. I like to think that a version of it literally took place. Mm-hmm. Because, like we said, Morai has shown up following Ahsoka on the Ahsoka show, on Rebels, and I think once or twice on Clone Wars. And again, that's the owl, the ones, the Force gods, the father, son, and daughter, could transform into like creatures.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the daughter transformed into was that little owl. And again, like you said, Ahsoka literally died, and the daughter gave up her life to basically resurrect Ahsoka for all intents and purposes, and ever since she's been followed around by this owl.
Yeah.
So, and the only other thing to point to this to kind of back it up is that Ahsoka's name in the Ahsoka novel, the chosen name that she gives herself to hide, is Ashla, which was George Lucas's original name for the light side of the Force in the first Star Wars drafts.
Yeah.
Before eventually he went, I should just call it the light side and not have so many strange words. But that was an idea from Filoni, that the actual name that she chose to hide in is ancient Star Wars for light side.
Yeah.
So, what to me, what it all points to, and it worries me, but I think at the end of Ahsoka season 2, Ahsoka's going to take the place of the daughter in Mortis, and that will be where she will be for the future. And she will not be in the corporeal physical world anymore. And it's also entirely possible that Anakin Skywalker is going to take the place of the father.
That's cool.
And then Baylan, and then because you'll need a dark side, could be Baylan Skoll is the son, or it could be Anakin is the son and Baylan Skoll is the father. I don't. Because Anakin can have dark sidey eyes if he desires in the world between worlds. Or they'll be really metal, and Qui-Gon Jinn will be the father.
Ooh.
I don't think that's gonna happen, but that would be fun.
That made me so happy that I would love that. So many people I think would be so mad. I would love that.
I would think it was fantastic. It would potentially be a very Loki season 2 ending. Spoilers, I guess, where that now our character's gonna live on, but like as a god. Heavy air quotes, kind of trapped in this place, but that could be a way. It would make people mad because Ahsoka is now officially immortal.
That would make me so happy.
I think
come
that
at
could
me
be
for that, but I think that's great.
I think that could be where it's going, and I think that there's a version of Ahsoka season 2 that is Ahsoka's death, or a version of her death, so that all the stakes are on Sabine and Ezra to beat Thrawn in this movie. Yeah. Right? It's the basic Star Wars where the mentor has to die so that the main characters have to move forward. But so anyway,
Gandalf
I just thought it
fight the Balrog, you know.
Yeah, the fly you fools, right?
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah, nerd cred kept.
But that would have been Gandalf the Grey. She's
yeah, I know. She's Gandalf the White now. All right, anyway, neither here nor there. Zach, we got another quote from a Star Wars actor.
From Hollywood Reporter, we got Daisy Ridley talking about the new Jedi Order. Team is prioritizing quality over quickness. She is quoted as saying, People have talked about it a lot, that the release date often affects films and how quickly things go into production. So the freedom to make sure that this new Jedi Order script is the best way to tell this story is wonderful, and I don't think any fans would want it to be rushed. The wait will be worth it. I know what George, talking about George Nolfi, is working on, and he is a phenomenal writer, so I'm really looking forward to reading it. So that tells me that, good. Take your time. Matt, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's pretty transparent to me and probably to many of you what she is talking about. At the end of the day, Star Wars was a franchise that until the prequels, there were 3 years at least between every iteration. I'm sorry, before the sequels. And then they made the sequels and they came out, there were only 2 years in between. Mm-hmm. That sounds like not a big difference. That is a huge difference for especially a huge film time. Like this. Yeah. Especially in production time, especially when you're making episode 9, you pull the creative team and restart with 2 years, like almost to the day that the movie needs to be done for you to be able to release it. Trevorrow was removed from the project and replaced with JJ and and Chris Terrio in like October of 2017. Mm-hmm. And that movie was originally supposed to come out in May of 2019. And JJ begged him to push it back, and so they moved it back to December. But it's pretty transparent what she's talking about, and we've heard about all the tumultuous stuff with Rise of Skywalker, how the movie needed to come out no matter what, and they prioritized that over anything else. JJ asked for it to be 2 movies at one point. JJ asked for it to come out a year later at one point. Yeah. And all those things were answered with, no, it comes out when it comes out.
Which so is a terrible response.
Yeah. And so to have the star of your movie coming out in what we talked about earlier in this episode.
Yeah.
Of they are looking for quantity over quality. Sorry, dang it. Scratch that, reverse it. They're looking for quality over quickness here. Mm-hmm. In an era where it is kind of a fire hose and there is so much content, here is something that they are pumping the brakes and taking the time to get it right. I've said it before on the show. I think this is like this because they announced this movie alongside the Dawn of the Jedi movie and the Dave Filoni New Republic movie, and then immediately after, they didn't know this was coming, the entertainment industry went on strike for 8 months, and they literally were not allowed to do any development work on these projects at all. Because all the writers were on strike, right? Yeah. You were not allowed to do anything. And then coming out of that, they kind of had to start again at ground zero. Because 8 months in Hollywood is an eternity. And now everybody's moving on to other projects because they got to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
So I think this is good news, and this is making me happier and happier and happier. Because a couple weeks ago, I thought this movie wasn't going to happen anymore.
Yeah. And also, another thing I like about it is this is silly, but it gives time for Daisy Ridley to age a little bit, and so that Rey doesn't look like it's a year later, and I mean, she's 32 now and was 25. So like either way, she's older, but it gives it gives time for the character to feel and visually look different. And
because I have seen the criticism that at this point it is going to be 15 years after Rise of Skywalker because this came out, because this movie is set 15 years after Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Hey, honestly, if the movie's dope, great. Time does not guarantee it being better.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point it's done and you can only tinker so much without just kind of messing up what you got.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to hear that what she's saying is we are letting them cook.
Yeah.
As the kids would say. There you go.
Matt. Teacher of youth. That's the
Yeah. That's that. All right, anyway. Okay. But so speaking of so here's the opposite.
Yeah.
Taking time to make sure your movie has some quality, to let it breathe, let it be organic and kind of discover itself. And if I sound artsy fartsy, it's because I went to college for this, and to be a jerk about it, I know what I'm talking about.
So humble too.
You can do hey man, I literally am a storyteller for a living, directing Julius Caesar right now. And
nice.
Anyway, I'm just saying, this is what I do. Or you could put a bunch of catchwords into a computer, and it can generate now an entire Star Wars fan film. I will not name drop the creator of this fan film, because to be a jerk about it, they are not a creator. But there was a fan film that went semi-viral on YouTube. It is called The Ghost's Apprentice. You can look it up if you want. I found it to be clearly computer generated, because while it looked really pretty when it was exterior shots, as soon as there were people, it was a lot of standing, looking at each other emotionlessly, reciting dialogue that didn't always make grammatical sense.
Yeah.
To be fair, maybe it became amazing in the latter half. I did not watch it. I watched about 5 minutes, 2 minutes, realized it was pure AI, and was like, oh, okay, and then started skipping around. There's a lightsaber duel that's completely computer, just artificially created, and it looks like it was artificially created. So, Zach, while I have started in a very negative place, but as people that went to college to be artists, just, to kind of, and as people that do this professionally, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence generated art?
It makes me sick to my stomach.
Explain.
I want to throw up every time I see it. Like, I hate it. I have a visceral reaction to it. I think AI is scary, and I know some people use it as a tool to help with other things, and that's well and good, I guess. But, like, nothing is going to be as good as people doing art, and I watched like 30 seconds of this just to see what it was, and I was like, nope, I'm done. Like, click. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't want it in my Star Wars. I don't want it in my art. I don't want it in the things I consume. I was there on the AI trend when everybody did their photos thing, and then I realized that it stole from other artists to do the thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely awful. And I am so mad that I supported it. But that's ignorance, you don't know, and then you do it, and then you go, oh well, never doing that again, and that's that. I don't like the AI. I don't support the AI. I think it's taking the jobs of artists, and I think it's really just corporate greed and corporate, let's save a buck, but then also the systems that take the literal computer systems that run these AI, take power and energy and resources from the planet, and it's just like, why you could feed somebody for a day, and give them a living, day rate or wage, and get them to do it. Or you could, use, Bing or Google or whatever, and put something up for likes. But anyways, I hate it. I'm against it. And, especially as an actor and a voice actor, I look for every contract. I look for AI protections, and if that's not there, it's something I talk about. Luckily, in New York and California, there's legal precedent that they have to include it if they're going to use it for AI in the contract. But I think I've said enough, but I hate it.
Yeah. Well, the biggest reason I wanted to have this conversation, because I think that pretty much anybody, I thought that that's how everybody felt. But the only reason I even wanted to say this on the podcast was as I saw this on Twitter and clicked on it, and all of the comments underneath this fan film were praising the creator for his work and artistry. And I tweeted about it. I was like, that is one of the more uncomfortable things I've ever seen on the not I've ever seen on the internet. But in relation to this specific topic, I was baffled because what I usually see everywhere is people going, these things are not art. They are not. They're not an artistic creation.
Yeah.
They are literally and they're remixes of things that humans have actually made.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you could also say that's what art that we make is, right? Is that we watch a movie, it buries itself in our subconscious. Years later, when you're writing something else, you're pulling on things that you've experienced from your life as well as the art that you have consumed. But what someone said to me was, it's not perfect, but it is art. Like, by definition, it is art. And I said, because they were talking about how, they said what I just said, no different than a human. It is an artificial intelligence that takes its experiences and makes something. I said, that's not true, because it didn't have any experiences. It did not have any experiences on its own and then have a reaction to it. Yeah. It watched art, and if anything, if it is art, then it's purely plagiarism. Period.
Yeah.
Like by definition, that's what it is. Either it's not art, or it is, and it's plagiarized. Like, there's no other real way around it. And I don't want to come off as people just afraid for their jobs. Like, I work in live theater, and to be perfectly honest with you, while everything's getting expensive, we're safe from AI. At least for the next, like, probably century or so, right? Like, I'm fine in what I do for a living. But it's when people start praising it as artistry, it makes me very uncomfortable. The same way that you see people get, in my opinion, way overly hateful of the Luke Skywalker depiction on Book of Boba Fett. Is there AI involved? Apparently, yes, with the voice. They've remixed it, and it makes people uncomfy.
It makes me uncomfy.
Well, and that's fair. What I saw was that they did employ an actor involved. They also employed Hamill.
Yeah.
And then they did some stuff to try to make it as photo and audio realistic a depiction of what 1983 or 84 Mark Hamill would be. And I thought it was a huge step forward in technology while still using people. It wasn't just a pure computer thing. And then the same thing, but people get so mad about that. But then the same thing what I talked about a couple weeks ago on the show, the Sam Witwer Star Trek fan film, where he played William Shatner, and what you're Captain Kirk, and what you're seeing is a in real-time rendering of Bill Shatner's face over his, but the rendering was using Witwer's facial expressions just to kind of reanimate them as William Shatner, and it was phenomenal because he was doing Shatner's expressions, he was doing his physicality, and just with a computer, just tweaking it to where it looks like Bill Shatner. And I think that's really cool. And that is that you could say that makes me kind of a hypocrite after this rant that I've just gone on. But to type words, the biggest thing for me, if you want to watch AI fan films, cool. Some of the images can be fun, like whatever, that's fine. But don't kid yourself. That doesn't take skill. That takes typing the right combo of words into a computer over and over and over and over and over again to have something else make it. Like, there is no work involved.
Yeah, I mean,
like, there's no art, there's no work, there's no artistry involved. You're typing words into a machine.
Yeah, and I don't think this is like a script that the person wrote and threw in there.
It's not.
Yeah.
Like, he talked about how it's not. So, and again, I don't want to name drop them, which you could say is crappy, but even then, what?
If you're gonna do that, go on Fiverr and get somebody to storyboard it. You know,
well,
like,
that costs money.
Yeah, I know, but like, employ an artist, like, you know, like, or draw it yourself with stick figures and throw that up. Like, if it's art and it's actually good, it will still resonate. Like, or just throw your script up there and read it. Like,
well, then the other thing about it, the other thing that's worth mentioning. Well, I've talked about, like, you know, this is what I do for a living. I'm a storyteller by trade. Again, the biggest thing that I've learned is that there is no right, there is no wrong, there is subjective opinions. Period. That's how you evaluate this stuff. In my opinion, you have to start from, there is no right or wrong. This is what I saw from it. Right? So that, because that's just how it goes, because no matter what, there will always be differing opinions on any movie or TV show or whatever that comes out. And so it's what JJ said about the sequels. They're right. The people that hated them. To a degree, they're right, because that's what they got out of it. But the people that watch these AI movies and talk about how this is better than what Disney's making, I'm like, hey, that's your opinion. I will never understand ever. You know? So it's opinions, so we can debate, but there's nobody right or wrong. But it's a weird time that things purely created by a computer are now thought of as better than art made by humans, simply because it's not woke. Strange times that we live in.
Yeah.
So anyway, I feel like this has been...
If you want to watch a really good artist, go watch Spiky Tortoise and watch his film.
There you go. Go watch his... if you want to watch cool fan creations, go watch the Dark Empire cartoon.
Yeah.
Made by Spiky Tortoise. It's really cool. I think, and his superhero cartoon is going to come out soon, like Spectacular Catman or something. So there's our plugs for the episode. Because I won't name drop this AI creator, but I'll name drop an actual really, really talented, really hardworking animator.
Yeah.
But anyway, I feel like this has been weird, Worms Can the episode. That'll be the title. Not Can of Worms, Worms Can.
Yeah.
But we're gonna dive right into the mailbag.
Mailbag.
Speaking of opening things up, we got time for your questions and your speculation, and we're gonna dive into it on the show. Zach, hit us with this first one.
Yeah, first one coming from a friend of the podcast, Rocky Westbrook. Why do you think Osha responded almost like she was suffocating when she put on the stranger's helmet? Rocky has a theory that there's more to the helmet. Matt, your thoughts?
So I think... obviously, this is an acolyte question. If you don't know what we're talking about, she puts on the stranger's cortosis helmet, and immediately after putting it on, starts gasping, and the stranger is being choked. And, his eyes go black on black, and he has to reach up and take the helmet off of her. And as soon as she's free from that, they're both able to breathe again, right? It's very much the same kind of entering his mind palace visual that we get when Mother Anastasia... reaches into the mind of, I forget the name of the Padawan. Torben. There you go. Yes. So, same thing here. To me, I think it's what's happening in this moment is so much of Osha's arc is her being told to swallow her power. Her being told to just, hide your light under a bushel, right? Be a good Jedi and just swallow your emotions, right? And once she was in that mask that they established on that show is a sensory deprivation mask.
Yeah.
You can't see, you can't hear, it's just the Force.
Yeah.
And so as soon as all she had to reach out with was the Force, her raw power just kind of exploded out of her. And she, without being conscious, was just entered the stranger's mind and was killing him. And she couldn't control her power because she hasn't been told to really use it.
Yeah.
And she's got so much sword trauma. So there's my answer. As soon as she had to confront it, or as soon as she had nothing else to do but just experience her pure force power or pure trauma, it was trouble. Because there was so much built up behind the dam. That's my take.
Yeah.
What about you, bud?
Similar. It is a sensory deprivation, and sometimes when all of your senses go away, it can be scary and traumatic and, but also releasing. And so she puts it on and, it's like, it's almost like a panic attack, a forced panic attack. And I think it's really cool. I'm so glad that they added that mythos to dark side helmets. And I hope that they expand that to other darksiders that we know. That's one of my favorite things of the Acolyte is that helmet. I think that's a good theory. So.
Yeah, that show wasn't perfect, but it was pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
But okay, so we got another question from another friend of the podcast, Mr. Brian Lawson. I like this one. This is short to the point. What is your favorite Star Wars era?
I think my favorite Star Wars era is the original trilogy. I know it's dumb, but it might be cliche. Not dumb because likes aren't dumb. But yeah, I love the kind of tactile, lived-in feeling of that era. It doesn't feel shiny and chrome. It feels everything's dirty, and everything is has grease and dirt caked into the helmets, and it just feels real. And yeah, that's my favorite. What about you?
And so I it really only comes down to two eras because they're the two eras that Star Wars has mostly been in for most of my life. And that's the original trilogy. And then the one that, if I'm honest with myself, the one that I think I like more is the Fall of the Jedi era. It's the prequels. It's the prequels and Into the Dark Times. The Fall of the Jedi, The Rise of the Empire. I talk about a lot how I love simplicity and I love like good guys, bad guys. When you can do that well, that can still be interesting, even if you risk being like childish or childlike.
Yeah.
Right? But there's also something really, really cool about the murky, twisted political reality of the prequels. And then when you dive into that a little bit, that like the Separatists were just as much puppets as the Republic, and it was all Palpatine engineering an entire war, and you have the Mandalorians running around, and you have the crime syndicates are also running around, and you have the Jedi existing at like the height of their power, at least politically.
Yeah. There's
just so much going on. I think that might be my favorite era, but it's also it's not. The prequels didn't make it my favorite era. Clone Wars did.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I love the original trilogy. That's up there too. I just think the prequels are so interesting because watching George Lucas's interpretation and almost belief system on what destroys democracies, that because people don't know. He started college as studying sociology.
Yeah.
Or he might not have started, but that was part of his college path. Might not have been the first thing, but it was before film. And one of the things that he learned and saw was that power is rarely taken. Like dictatorships don't happen because someone seizes the power. It happens because the people willingly give the power over to the dictator. Every time. They always give it over. Out of fear of safety or what have you, right? And just to watch Palpatine just twist an entire galaxy that doesn't realize they're being twisted, and even when he loses, still wins. He's the ultimate puppy master, and he'd be the best. Huh?
You said puppy master.
My God in heaven, I'm in rare form today, kids. Puppet master. I am the ultimate puppy master.
Give me all of your doggies.
That's a big stretch for a little puppy. All right, anyway, he's a puppet master. The ultimate puppet master. He's the greatest. He'd be the greatest improv comedian of all time. If you got Sheev Palpatine at Second City, like, man, it'd be literal lightning striking all over the stage. Because he jumps so quickly.
You've been a wonderful audience.
You've been a wonderful audience. If you only knew the power of the dark side. Anyway, so it's the Fall of the Jedi. I do love the original trilogy. That will always have a very, very special place in my heart. And obviously, all the people that were alive at that time love the original trilogy, which is why the sequels are the original trilogy 2.0.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, it's the Fall of the Jedi.
Cool.
So that's my favorite.
Nice. Next question coming from Matt's little brother, Mark Boydner. Do you believe Disney hasn't made the new... Do you believe Disney hasn't made a new Luke's Jedi Academy story because they are still building the roster?
Simply put, no.
Oh.
I think it's because they have no idea what to do / no real need for that story yet. My biggest contention, and I've said it on the show before, I think once we've had this Dave Filoni Mando era ending movie, assuming that's what this is, we will then start to the next era will be the new Jedi Order Luke style, right? And it'll be the Ben Solo Luke Skywalker stuff for 5-10 years. That's my prediction. I think it's that they haven't gotten there yet. We've literally, to the point that they've literally shown him, they've shown the construction day one of the Academy. To me, Dave Filoni is not always the most subtle, right? To me, that's him telling us, this is the beginning, we'll get there later.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna get there, okay? Now, I have a follow-up question, but first I want to hear your thoughts to the original thing. Do you think they haven't done it because they're still building the roster?
I think a little bit, but I also think we know how it ends, and we know how it begins. And so, yes, it'll be an interesting story, but we know, like, you kind of know where it's going. Like, you know, Ben's gonna get trained. He's gonna get, seduced by Snoke and then burn it all down. So it's like, we kind of already, it's a story that's already been told a little bit. Yes, it'll be cool to see exactly how it happens, but like, if we don't ever get it, it's not like we're missing it that much. I know, Matt, it's the movie you want to make, but
oh, dog, it's the TV show that I legit think is the biggest missing thing in canon. Like, it's the fracture of the relationship between Luke Skywalker and Ben Solo.
Yeah.
If nothing else, and this, again, Last Jedi bringing up, trigger warning, it's the piece that could make Luke's arc in Last Jedi make sense.
Yeah.
And not even that, it's the piece that'll make Ben Solo make more sense. We have seen the aftermath of his fall. We have not, or I guess like the peak of his fall when he kills Han. We have not seen and we've seen his presence at the destruction of Luke's Academy in the Rise of Kylo Ren comics. We have not seen what Luke was talking about, of Ben sliding into darkness and Luke working and trying to keep him from going, and everything that built up to the moment when he realized, when he reached into his mind and saw Snoke had turned his heart and saw who he was going to be.
Yeah.
I think that's the missing piece of canon. I also think Darth Plagueis is another missing piece, but because that will not ever happen now that that's tied to Acolyte Season 1, or at least it won't for 5-10 years.
Yeah.
I think they have to do this, man. So, but, follow-up question. So let's say that they do it. Zach, what characters that we have already seen or that you're about to invent would you want to be on that roster or to show up on that show from time to time?
Yeah, I mean, you got to do Jason Syndulla.
Sure, 100%.
You got to do, I think it would be cool to do like one of the Skeleton Crew kids.
Sure.
If you could, I don't know how timeline that would fully work out.
It totally could, because they're the same age as Jason Syndulla.
Yeah. I want to see some cool aliens. I want I want like an Ithorian, or like, I don't know, like I want like,
okay,
you could do a Wookiee. I don't know. I want alien, like full costume character. And then you got to find a really cool young actor to do Kylo. Like, those are hard shoes to fill. Adam Driver is fantastic in that role. I don't care what anybody says about the sequels. That's a casting that is a hard one to do. So, but yeah, I don't know. I want to see Jason in there. I don't want him to die. But
But that's the thing, the story of Ahsoka Tano taught me many things, right? There's fantastic life lessons in the silly story of that cartoon character. There's also lessons on how to actually be a fan of something. For years, you and I, everybody, thought Ahsoka was toast.
Yeah.
That we were just ticking down the clock until she dies for Star Wars Episode 3, because she's not in Star Wars Episode 3.
Yeah.
To the point that I even asked Ashley Eckstein about it when we met her at Star Wars Fan Days. I said, what's it like playing a character that we don't know what's going to happen to her? Mm-hmm. Or do you know what's going to happen to her?
Yeah.
Right? And then, of course, she's like, well, But she talked about as an actor that it was fun playing somebody that we don't know what's going to happen to them. But we all thought she was going to die, only to find out, oh, right, there's another option. She could leave the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
And literally not be present for Order 66. And then obviously get out of it the way she does in Siege of Mandalore. But there could be all kinds of things. It could be as simple as Jason Syndulla goes off to be with his mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he could leave well before Kylo goes bad.
Yeah.
And that could be one of the things on the show is Wim wants Jason to come be a pilot, and so does his mom. Luke wants him to be a Jedi, but it could be a Luke Skywalker moment of just like, the Force can lead you anywhere. Mm-hmm. Just listen to what it wants you to do.
Yeah.
and that's why he's not there. He goes off to go be a pilot with Hera. That could be a really cool story that I would like to see. As for other characters that I'd love to see on there, yeah, I want new things. We have seen 3 of them from the Legacy of or the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. I forget their names, but there's Quarren, there's an Adi Gallia. I don't remember the name of the alien race, and then I think the other one's a normal human. It's like Vo something and whatever. But outside of that, just new cool things. Something that I've never done this before, but we got a couple minutes still. My pitch for a new Jedi Order show was that it is animated, right? Speaking of the AI conversation, my other worry would be that it's going to be live action. It's going to be deep fake Luke Skywalker every week.
No,
I think there's a very likely possibility of that being what they would like to do, but
I would hate that.
Yeah, a lot of people would.
I would sincerely hate that, especially with the voice.
If they are not able, like, yes, it would.
The revoicer. I'm sorry, that Luke Skywalker has the same cadence in every single line he does.
Yeah.
It takes me out. Anyways.
Yeah. But my pitch was, and this was years ago, so you need a new Star Wars lead, right? I talked about how, if it's animated, earlier on the show, I talked about how there was Ahsoka on Clone Wars, there was Ezra in Rebels, there was Omega on Bad Batch, so you need a young lead character. Have it be someone from outside the galaxy.
Cool.
And that then whoever it is, their arc is then to take what they've learned and go back outside the galaxy, and that's why we don't see them at the destruction of the temple, and maybe a bunch of other characters that we've met leave with them to go fight the Yuuzhan Vong or what have you in wherever they're from, and there's reasons why Luke and the others can't go. Or maybe Luke and the others do go, and then they decide to go back to the temple, and these others, it's the thing of like, they've been over the rainbow, but what they wanted was at home all along. Mm-hmm. You could do something like that, right? And that would be a way to tie in extragalactic invaders like the Yuuzhan Vong. And we have established that there is other galaxies in Star Wars canon because of what they did on Ahsoka Season 1.
Yeah.
So I think just do that.
You know what I also want? I want a young Chiss Skywalker, quote unquote, in that academy. Like, if you don't know the Chiss, which is what Thrawn is, they have young Force users basically that help them do hyperspace. But they lose their powers at like 13, 14. So I would want to see a young Chiss Force user who's trying to keep the Force.
That could be cool. Yeah, I would love that.
That'd be
story.
a cool struggle. Be like, you're teaching me, Luke, but I can't. Like, I'm losing it.
Yeah. Well, and I haven't read the Thrawn book where that comes from. That's Thrawn Alliances, I believe. But I don't know. That was always a weird idea for me. That, I mean, it was cool that the name Skywalker could have other cultural beginnings, right? But also, it just seemed very not Star Wars. To me, it seems very not Star Wars when the Force is a quantifiable power that functions in predictable ways, right? Where it's like, well, we all lose our connection to the Force at 13 years old like clockwork.
Yeah.
We hit puberty, it's gone. And I'm always like, well, but if the Force surrounds us and penetrates us and binds the galaxy together, you never lose it, And maybe that could be the story, that it's like a cultural thing, and this character does not realize it's a cultural thing until they're able to keep it, and then maybe like Chiss are like offended by that or whatever, like, how dare you? And it could be like you are, I don't want to say infidel, but like, you're going against tradition.
Yeah.
Anyway, weird speculation and fan fiction aside, I think that would be a really, really, really cool show. Yeah. Show us the make good on and. So to answer your question, Mark, no, I don't think that's why, but it could be interesting. Other characters I'd love to see. I want to see Sabine show up. I want to see Ezra show up. I want to see Cal Kestis show up.
As teachers in the academy. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. They're there on their
show. You just sold me.
Yeah, I'm saying like, and that would need to be live action for me, right? Because when you have the characters that exist, and you can have characters show up for 1 or 2 episode stints of like, yes, Master Kestis is here and he's going to teach you about whatever, and now we're going to go on an adventure with Cal, right?
Yeah.
And that would be a way to not have Luke Skywalker be in every episode, right? If now that we're going to be with Master Tano we're going to be with Master Bridger for an episode.
Yeah.
Anyway, neither here nor there. I'm saying that show would be really dope. Okay, so for the last question for the episodes, from Rocky Westbrook once more, it's an interesting, weird question. Do you think someone with no midichlorians or a low midichlorian count can gain the power to touch the Force if they are given more midichlorians? And it goes on to speculate, or is it like blood types and requires certain blood types to accept them? Zach, your response to this interesting midichlorian question.
Well, if you go back to our Halloween episode, I made a whole story about it, about a villain taking midichlorian-rich blood to get Force powers. I think that's a cool idea. That being said, I am of the thought that it does not matter how many midichlorians you have to get the Force. I think, I think it's the Force surrounds us, it binds us, it, glues the galaxy together. It's part of everything. It doesn't
100%.
matter how many midichlorians you have, because honestly, I think we all have the same amount of midichlorians, and maybe those are the ones that are awake in your body, Or the Force is so much more interesting to me if it's not about your blood and about legacy. It's about, need and character and, want and drive and, when it's more mystical, it's more interesting. If I'm a pilot in an X-Wing and all of a sudden I crash on a planet and I'm, stuck and I'm like, hey, you know what? Maybe this time I can use the Force and like it works and then it never works again or something. That's way more interesting to me, I like it when it's more mystical and less about blood type and how blood count and less sciencey. Star Wars is supposed to be science fantasy, not science fiction. So that's my answer.
Well, and it's and it's what we were just talking about with the Chiss Skywalkers, right? Of like my only pushback was that they all lose the Force, boom, at a certain age. Real quick, just to dive into the way the different canons have touched on this, in Legends, even before midichlorians were a thing, there was something called clone madness, right? Where the reason they made up a reason, knowing that the Clone Wars were something that existed and those hadn't been defined yet. In the original Thrawn trilogy, starting with Heir to the Empire, you meet a character named Jorus Sabayot, and he is a cloned Jedi, and he is insane. And basically what they established in those books is that when you would clone someone that was Force sensitive, they would always go crazy. They would always go a little nuts. It never really worked. And that was kind of their way of talking about how the Force is special to individual people. In canon, this idea hasn't really been touched. Actually, I am wrong. I believe they tried to do that with Moff Gideon.
Yes.
That was what that was all about on Mandalorian. I still maintain that wasn't the original plan, but that was what it became, that he was trying to give himself the Force, right, from Grogu. And then in Force of Others canon, like you said, from Zach's Halloween scary story, I can't remember what it was called right now.
Dr.
I'll
Sanguine.
link it below. Dr. Sanguine, that's right. Check out our Halloween spooky story, because it's always Halloween season. That's not true. Halloween sucks. But you can always take in a scary story. So, but yeah, all the same stuff. Dave Filoni gave a really beautiful explanation of how he always interpreted midichlorians. I don't remember where this came from. I'm just always taking in this stuff, but I promise you it came from Dave Filoni somewhere. Where the way that he described it in his or understands midichlorians from his conversations with George is that what George was really interested in was how genetics determine pure aptitude in people. There are things that you will be better at based on your blood and your genes than other people.
Yeah.
Not that you are going to end up way better than them, but you will have more aptitude for it. And so that's why it was just a way to show Anakin's natural amped up Force ability, in that it's like the type of thing that like you or I are reasonably athletic. Like we're a step above average, I would say. We work out, we run, we do all that stuff. I used to do jujitsu. I could do martial arts every day for my entire life and devote my life to just doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu or doing martial arts. I would never touch Bruce Lee. Ever.
True.
That's what George, according to Dave, that's what George was trying to get at with midichlorians, that it's pure aptitude. But I do think there is the mystical component in it. As Hu Yang says to Sabine on Ahsoka, you are the worst candidate in the history of the Jedi, right? You are the least qualified.
Yeah.
And even then, she's able to force push Ezra back home.
Yeah.
Literally able to send him back home with the Force, right?
Yeah,
So,
I guess we are kind of seeing it. Her midichlorian count is probably very low.
And yet, she can reach out with the Force if she lets it awaken within her, if she lets it flow through her. It's rarely convince the Force to do something. That's what the Darksiders do. The Lightsiders let the Force flow through you.
There's been an awakening. Have you felt it?
So there you go. There's our answers. Cool question, Rocky.
Yeah.
And I would love to see a canon story. I mean, they kind of halfway did it on Mando, not really, because it was so half-baked at the end of Mando Season 3. I will always maintain that was not the original plan. They were setting up something else and just had to pivot for
I thought they were setting up Snoke.
Reason. You look at the
think
tank.
they are.
You look at the tank in Season 2, they are setting up where they're like the malformed clone body. They were setting up Snoke, and they could still say that plus whatever equals Snoke.
Yeah.
And they probably will eventually. But I would love to see them do a version of that story where someone tried to clone a Jedi and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right? They just went nuts. And maybe that is what they'll eventually do with Snoke.
I kind of want to see the cloned Luke from the 90s, you know, like I think that would be cool.
Dude, I so do. It's so cheesy. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's from the Thrawn trilogy. In those books, the way you designated a clone from the original is there's an extra letter in the name. So Luke Skywalker becomes Luke Skywalker. It's the climactic duel at the end of those trilogy of books is Luke and Mara Jade versus a cloned Luke Skywalker, cloned from his hand on Bespin.
Yeah.
So there's your canon tidbit for the day. Will we see Luke Skywalker in Luke Skywalker in Dave Filoni's Heir to the Empire movie? I really doubt it.
But man,
anyway,
the world would end. People would lose their minds.
I think superfans would lose their minds. I think your average person would have no clue what they're referencing.
Yeah.
It's so old now. Either that or a bunch of fake experts would appear. I read that book 30 years ago. Anyway, there's our episode.
Yeah.
There's our random grab bag episode. We're going to have fun stuff coming next week. I don't want to spoil what it is because we had different things planned for this week and they weren't able to happen.
Yeah.
Because sometimes lifes. But there's our episode. Zach, how does the Force flow through you and where can people find you?
I don't know. The Force flows through me in many ways. All good. I don't know. That's but you can find me by emailing the show, forceofothersradio@gmail.com. Send us your questions, your thoughts, your wants for Star Wars, and we will talk about them. Matt, where can they find you?
The same way, because social media is a disease, and I'm pretty much only getting involved with it through the show now because I like talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
But reach out to us on Instagram, Twitter.
In the comments of this video.
In the comments of this video you're watching right now, in the comments of this podcast you're listening to on Spotify right now. Reach out to us, interact with the show, and we will interact with you. I do have some fun plans for the future. I keep saying that. One way or another, just to put something down on paper. On Star Wars Day, May 4th, May the 4th be with you. We will be premiering, so that'll actually be Friday, May 2nd. Or maybe whatever. That weekend, in celebration of Star Wars Day, we will be putting out the first Star Wars role-playing game actual play episode of this podcast. I'm assembling the Avengers for it as we speak, one of which will be Zach, and we probably won't use cool minis like I mentioned earlier because it will be digital, but who knows. But either way, that is coming. We got other fun stuff in the pipeline, but interact with this post, like, subscribe, do all the things. Listen to us as a podcast, watch us as a YouTube show, and otherwise let the Force flow through you. And as you do that, remember, the Force of others will be with you.
Always.
The Force of Others, a Star Wars podcast.